is gone. Mambo Shoshe, can I just start now and then we can wait for Chief Ndiweni to join us? Hello?
Yes, I think we can go ahead and hope that Chief Ndiweni will join us.
Okay, we've already got one speaker who's well versed around the issues with the diaspora vote, who's here, John Burke. So maybe you can start a conversation with him. So just get us started, I'm going to start off by introducing myself. My name is Patricia Chinyoka, and I'm part of the public relations team at Change Radio. And I also host the Political Trends program. So if there are people here that want to talk about politics, have views, please feel free to DM, and I'll be happy to have you as a guest on the Political Trends program. So I'm just going to start off by setting the scene tonight. So I'll start off with a tech brief. If one of the hosts drops off, one of us will be on here and they will continue the conversations. Speakers may drop off as well. Please do come back in again and request the mic. Sometimes when we give you the mic, it's not possible for you to pick it up, so request it. Please try to avoid phoning the hosts. We are using the one device to host the spaces, and it is the same device on which we would normally receive calls. So it just becomes a bit pressurized. Thank you. We also ask for respect on this platform. This platform is for all of us to learn together, to share our different perspectives. It's a welcoming, inclusive platform, and we ask that you speak in a universal language as we have a global audience. But if you do speak in a different language, which is not English, kindly interpret for the benefit of others. So welcome again to all of our listeners and across Twitter space, but also we've got listeners on YouTube, we've got listeners on Facebook, and so we are delighted to welcome you all. Before I introduce the hosts, tonight we are focusing on the diaspora vote. Is it a reality? How can diasporas engage in the political processes in Zimbabwe? Because we know that the inclusion of diaspora in political processes represents an important tool to maintain connections with its citizens abroad. And we all want to feel that we are a part of the country that we came from. And diaspora voting is also a means of preserving national belonging and strengthening our own identity, because all of us want to feel that we belong to something. Even though we may vote in the countries in which we now live or reside in, we still want that connection with motherland. And so out of all these different aspects of a country of origin in which we, the diaspora, find ourselves, I think one of the greatest things that we do is that we remit money home. And I know that when I looked at the statistics for 2020, I think the US remittances were about 1 billion compared to 2019 when it was US 636 million. And it grew exponentially over the COVID period. So most of us were sending money home to help our family members. And so it becomes critical that we are able to participate in political processes, that we are able to participate in the voting process, because we want to ensure that the government of the day is citizen-centered. And I think this is where Change Radio comes in. As a upcoming digital radio, we are providing an alternative voice for Zimbabwe. We were formed back in June 2020 to answer the call to the lack of media freedom in Zimbabwe. As you know, there just isn't much on offer for organizations or individuals with a dissenting voice. And so we want this platform to be able to support the main opposition political party, which is the Citizens CCC, which was launched recently, Citizens Coalition for Change. And we exist to amplify their messages, to make sure that it is getting to all the different constituencies. So whilst we broadcast from social media platforms, that's YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and also WhatsApp platforms, those messages are getting to some rural communities. And we would love to have a license, but it's going to be a real challenge with the current regime. And so we exist to be there for the genuine opposition movements. So I am going to stop there because I know that there's going to be so much discussion that's going to be had, but we thought it was really important that we would come together and discuss the diaspora vote. And I'm going to introduce my co-hosts. So we have Mambo Shoshe, who is the deputy team leader for Change Radio. And we also have the Diaspora Network Affairs Coordinator, who is another co-host. And I am going to hand over to the Diaspora Affairs Coordinator so he can say hello to us, and then we'll hand over to Mambo Shoshe to start us off. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I hope you are all well, wherever you are, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening. My encouragement right now is if all of us, right now we are 70, if we retweet or we tweet about this space, if we pick up one or two more people, I will actually be over 150. So can we just try to share the link as much as we can so that more people can join? We can share it via WhatsApp, we can share it on our timelines, and then the more people who come, the better the discussion will be. You are the owners of the discussion, so when we start taking people, don't hesitate to take the mic. This discussion is for all of us, so that's what I can say for now, and we'll be together throughout the entire space. Thank you so much. Over to you, Mambo Shoshe.
Thank you, Dr. Ziko. Thank you, everyone who is here. Thank you, Ms. Chinyoka, and our speakers. We are still waiting for Chief Ndiweni so that he can come and give us, his piece on the diaspora vote. But myself, talking as someone involved with Change Radio, I'll speak briefly about that and the involvement of Change Radio to the elections in Zimbabwe, and of course to the struggle as a whole. And later on during the program, I will take another hit and start speaking as one of the political leaders in the diaspora, as North America province chairperson, and also speak to what we are doing as external assemblies of the Triple C to ensure that our members and of course all Zimbabweans in the diaspora vote. I'm sure you are aware of some of the actions that we have taken, the demonstrations, the mass protests that we have done in South Africa, in the United Kingdom, here in America, and I will be giving you more information on that as we go in the program. But as Change Radio, we feel and we know that we have a very big role to play in the election dispensation in Zimbabwe. As Patricia has already said, we do not have a voice. The people of Zimbabwe cannot speak anyway. They cannot go to ZBC. They cannot go to ZTV. That is a fact. When last have you heard or have you seen President Chamisa appearing on ZTV? Unless it's something against Triple C or against his person or against his leadership. When last did you see Honorable Wende or Honorable Chibaya or Honorable Yepmo Chidziva or any of the senior Triple C leaders or other opposition parties? Not necessarily talking about the Triple C, Jacob Ngaruvume, Maim Juru, any of the opposition leaders in Zimbabwe, they are not on ZBC, and it's very difficult for them to be on ZTV or ZBC or any of the many radio stations that are owned by the state. And to that effect, that's what that's the issue of media space is one of the things that is on our key demands on electoral reform, that the government need to open up the media space so that everyone who wants to be on ZTV or on ZBC can go there. After all, these are public broadcasters. They are being supported by public funds. They are being supported by Zimbabweans. It's our money. So everyone really should be able to go to ZBC or ZTV and do that. But unfortunately, that is not the case. And we discovered that, crying alone is not going to get us anywhere. And then came Change Radio. It was actually the brainchild of our Secretary General, Honorable Charlton Wende, who approached the external assemblies to run Change Radio on behalf of the party. And today, I think we'll be getting to 1 year in a few months. And I can safely say that we have managed to disseminate information, to give people information. Of course, we can do more. But like I said last time, we've managed to broadcast news every day, from Monday to Friday. Just 2 weeks ago, we added a weekend bulletin that is coming out every Sunday. And as we go, we hope that I will be able to broadcast news 7 days a week. And the reason why we are limited in our broadcast and in the things that we do is we are self-funded. We are funded by the citizens. We are funded by Triple C members. We are funded by external assemblies. And as such, what we do, the programs that we have are very limited. But we are doing our best and we will continue to ensure that Zimbabweans have the much needed information. Some say information is money. It's money today. If you have information, you are empowered. And we are making sure that Zimbabweans have information on voter education, have information on the elections. And as you heard from some of the clips that we're playing, we even advertise where people are supposed to go and register to vote. All those things, as you will know, as you should know, are supposed to be done by the national broadcaster. They are supposed to be done by ZEC. And of course, ZEC is deliberately not giving people that pertinent information. ZEC is deliberately not doing voter education as it is mandated to do. If you go on ZEC website today, it will be telling you that they are supposed to do voter education. And besides that, the SADC set of guidelines to free, fair, and credible elections say member countries are supposed to do voter education and give pertinent information to the whole country. But we don't see that from ZEC. We don't see that on ZBC. We don't see that on ZTV. Obviously, it's deliberate, and I don't want to go into those reasons. I'm just stating the facts as they are, that we're supposed to be getting voter education from ZEC, but it doesn't do that. And obviously, as we go towards elections, as we go towards 2023, you obviously see one or two adverts being flighted by ZEC, but that's all they do. We should have voter education from the day an election ends to the day another election begins. But that's not the case. So that's why we need to support programs on Change Radio and institutions like Change Radio so that we can continue to give that pertinent information to the people, do our voter education there so that we have informed voters. But without further ado, I will go back again to Patricia so that she can introduce one of our speakers here, and then I can take it from there.
Thank you so much, Mambo Shosha. I think really that good that you have laid out the case for why Change Radio is needed more now more than ever, because people need to hear an alternative voice. But also, I think in this particular time that we're in, with by-elections coming up, voter education, voter awareness is so critical. People need to understand the importance of voting. And as Change Radio, supporting on the ground by having flyers so that people can read some information, flyers in all the different languages in Zimbabwe, to enable those that might not understand Shona to have something in Ndebele, in Kalanga, in whatever other languages that they are scattered around Zimbabwe, because there are quite a few languages that in the country that might not be well known. So it's how can we get messaging to people in the language that they understand? That's another critical factor. And so this fundraising is really important. So we hope that Mambo Shoshe can kick us off and we can start some fundraising later on so that we can get the support that we need. But I'm just now going to ask John Burke to come off mic, introduce himself, and then talk a bit about the diaspora vote.
Oh, good. Thank you very much, Patricia, and thank you to the other two co-hosts. Nice to meet up with you and talk. Now, on the 2nd of December last year, I was one of the co-authors of the Diaspora Vote petition that we sent to our 10 Downing Street to our Prime Minister. The follow-up to that is we were invited by the House of Lords, which is, if you like, is the oversight to our government, to discuss the diaspora vote in a personal Zoom meeting with four of the Lords and 2 MPs, which we did. We followed up with the Chief and myself and 2 or 3 others, just as to open the situation up. And realistically, these things are very beneficial. Now, obviously, we're doing these in the UK because it's on the doorstep of where the Chief is at the moment and myself. But it seems to me that similar exercises could be done in the USA, in Europe, Australia, Canada, and South Africa in particular, if you are able to petition the government to support a mandate for a diaspora vote for Zimbabwe, because we need to have a concerted attack on the ZANU-PF partisan government that you have. Every institution is partisan to ZANU-PF. There is nothing that is independent. You know, we've just spoken about ZBC. The ZEC is something we brought up to the House of Lords. They were unaware of how partisan the Zimbabwean Electoral Commission really was. And we've helped them understand. And this is a task we have in the United Kingdom, to take down the lies and the mistruths and the disinformation perpetrated by the ZANU-PF UK members who are regularly lobbying our government. CCC need to be doing exactly the same. We can introduce you to various people in the House of Lords, various MPs. We must continue with this dialogue. You are the, de facto opposition in Zimbabwe. That you must take up this mantle and act decisively and with, passion, which you obviously have. But you need to be hitting all the right targets. Now, just as an aside, I did see the documentary film President last Thursday with a group of CCC people, all in their lovely yellow. And amazingly enough, that is going to be on our national BBC network on Wednesday this week, 10 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time on Wednesday, the 9th of February. Now, again, this is subtle promotion of what is actually going on in Zimbabwe. And we have to thank the producers of this documentary stroke film, which is Ndiweni Newton and Danny Glover, the film star from America who was in Lethal Weapon with Mel Gibson. These are subtle and discreet little methods of appealing to the general populations and the parliaments within each of our governments And it's important that our national TV service, very much like ZBC, is now producing and now publishing this film, admittedly on one of their smaller channels, BBC4. It's not one of their more known channels. However, there are a lot of aspects to the diaspora vote that need to be put in place, not least that it's in your constitution, but the impracticality of coming home to register with ZEC has been proven time and time again to be just a pipe dream, with both ZEC deliberately maneuvering situations so you cannot do that. Equally, to actually vote at an embassy, again, all the embassies are partisan, part of ZANU-PF structure. In the UK, we've got a retired colonel as the ambassador in the United Kingdom. And I would suspect that in all the ambassador positions around the world, they are very much in the same vein. They are partisan. You won't get a free and fair election, even if the embassy was collating your votes. They would simply either burn the opposition votes or rig the numbers, which is what's been going on for the longest time, probably 42 years in Zimbabwe. So this is the problems, the uphill task that is faced. And realistically, we need as much outside help as possible to redress this balance. It's been going on for 42 years. The ZANU-PF are an utterly corrupt, failed government institution. I don't believe they do anything at all that would be worthy of being called government. Your roads, your railways, everything is in disarray. Your power supply is in disarray. Nothing works. Your sewage system is failing or failed, and the water supply is tainted. Everything is wrong. What are they doing? As a government, you have to ask, what on earth are they doing apart from corruption, smuggling, and selling off everything possible to the Chinese or anyone who's prepared to buy for them in exchange to arms, by the looks of it. So I would strongly recommend all people around the globe who are in CCC and other movements to support Zimbabwe, consider pressurizing the governments, the local governments where you are, with similar situations. Now, the actual content of our petition is on the website of the organization that I helped found, Zorro, ZHRO. The website address is ZHRO .org .uk. The petition is there to be read and to be used as a template if necessary. It was written by myself, the chief, and we had a little bit of input from ZAPU and CCC, well, MDZ at the time, and also another Mr. Karamanzira from ROHR in the UK. So we've laid some groundwork. We've got some impressive people listening, and we need to continue. On the practicalities front, there are systems in place that don't need your government's involvement whatsoever. There are, I can't say too much because it's in its infancy at this moment in time, but it is a system that is incorruptible. The vote that you cast is totally anonymous. In fact, it's protected by encryption, so nobody knows who voted for whom. So it should be as independent as possible. And it's not necessary for you to be in any place in the world. And it's accessible from a mobile phone, so long as it's a smartphone. And that's the only requirement. Ideally, it's aimed at the diaspora vote, but in future, it could be aimed at the Zimbabwe vote as well, because ZEC have failed miserably. That the film President exposes their lies. It exposes the corrupt judiciary within Zimbabwe. So nothing can be relied upon in Zimbabwe to have a free and fair and transparent election, which is the words that are used regularly by ZANU-PF and their spokespeople. But there are nothing to be seen along these lines whatsoever. The proof of the pudding is that I don't believe you've had a single free and fair election, well, since so-called independence. So on that note, I'll just leave you for any questions and pass back to Patricia.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You can go ahead, Patricia, then I'll come in.
No, you go ahead. I was just going to hand over to you.
Okay, all right. Thank you, John, and thank you for all the work that you're doing as a human rights defender, and in particular the work that you're doing for Zimbabwe. I know and I'm aware that you've been working with Chief Ndiweni and his team in the United Kingdom. I've had various conversations with the chief, and I've listened to his discussions around the diaspora vote. You know, he has a different way to what we have been, doing all this time. He says that there is a law that says the member countries in which we live in particular, like the United States, Canada, the UK, they can be held responsible for us to vote, and they can put mechanisms in place for us to do that. How far have you gone to that? I know you've been to the House of the Lords. You've gone to so many high places. How has that been received? And how much enthusiasm should we have as Zimbabweans?
Thank you. That's a very good question. And I have to say, we've been received exceptionally well. There are a group of quite a few lords, and we were speaking to the chairman of that group, who are responsible for looking into Zimbabwean matters. They've asked the government benches various questions, basically pinning them down to say, well, why weren't you aware of this, and why weren't you aware of that? So this is we are looking at the level above the British government with the House of Lords. I don't know enough about constitutional law in the other countries, but if they've followed the UK example, there will be an upper house, as it's called. So those people are more than the best target you could possibly have. They can influence the government of the day. And I have to tell you that the Lords are very interested in this. They are wanting us to ask them what they can do for us. They want to know. We have engaged with them. We're in a position now to ask them for all sorts of things, which we are now coming to terms with. So the impact has been remarkable. There is a lot of sympathy for what is going on in Zimbabwe. There's a lot of people who know the situation on the ground in some detail. However, we do have a government here that is far too pally with the ZANU-PF regime, far too willing to forgive and forget all the sorts of things, all the wrongs that have been done. So there is an element within our government that we are fighting. And we are fighting because we're in the level above that government, the British Conservative government, who I'm not happy with them at all. So, we are making moves, and I would strongly recommend copying what we've done, if it's possible, particularly in South Africa. You've got a friend in Malama, and others. So it is well worth pursuing, but certainly in any Commonwealth country like Australia and Canada, the situation, the structures are very similar to the UK, and it's well worth simply copying what we're doing, because it's a global. If we could show the whole diaspora acting in concert against various global governments, again working against the ZANU-PF, that will be an achievement. And what we can tell you, the chief will tell you when he comes on, is the effect we're having on ZANU-PF has been profound. They are hurting. They are hurting badly. They are looking for ways out of what we've started, but we can't give up. We have to continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. It's very encouraging, and I know you're going to be excited, as we go in the program, as you hear how we, the external assemblies of the CCC have picked up Chief Ndiweni's idea. There's someone who is going to come and speak here, Sophia Tekwane. She's in Sweden. She has done a lot of work working with myself and the chief and the other international relations secretaries in various countries. She's going to come up here and talk about that. But just asking one more question before we allow other people to come in. I don't know whether what you are petitioning the United Kingdom government and other governments here, is it in line with Section 67 of our Zimbabwean Constitution, which gives a right to every Zimbabwean who is above 18 years to vote, which means legally and technically every Zimbabwean is supposed to vote, because in a way there is diaspora vote, because we have Zimbabwean officials that are here in America, that are in the United Kingdom, that actually vote. So in a way, that the setup is already there. Maybe it's just the political willingness of the government to allow diasporians to vote. And if you also look at the SADC set of guidelines to free and fair elections, they refer to that as well. To that effect, we have Mozambique, Malawi, South Africa, and other Southern African countries that are already allowing their citizens to vote while they are outside their countries. So what you are doing, is it in line with the Zimbabwean Constitution or in conjunction with the Zimbabwean Constitution, or you are just using the provisions that are there, the constitutional provisions that are in foreign governments?
Thank you, for that question. Yes, it's quite involved. We've reminded the UK government of the Constitution, but we've also pointed out the difficult situation that you have in Zimbabwe, which is half of your population is not in the country in question. So it is very, very unusual situation. So it's not an ideal situation. We've also pointed out the problems with the ZEC and the fact that they are wholly partisan and we cannot rely on them to conduct free and fair elections, which, to be fair, they're well aware of because of the EU interventions, the EU commentary in 2018 and various other commentaries from the United States and even the UK about what happened in 2018. So yes, we are bringing up the Constitution, but we're also pointing out the difficulties that anyone's going to have to convince ZANU-PF to change their spots. Basically, they will not bring in a situation where they're going to be voted out. They're in love with the power that they have. They will not give it up, and they will not give it up easily. However, they are part of the world. They're not independent of the planet that they live on. So there is influence, and that's the best we can do at this stage from this distance away from Zimbabwe. So all I can suggest is that people read the petition that we've written. It's on our website. There might even be a copy on the My Right to Vote website that the chief runs. So I did send him a copy, and we've got physical copies of the one we handed over with signatories and the like. But it's a long petition. It's a written petition, not necessarily thousands of signatures, but with evidence of why we need support to effect a diaspora election. Because, as I say, more than 50% of the world population of Zimbabwe are not in Zimbabwe, and you cannot ignore or extinguish their right to speak. And as Patricia brought up earlier, the remittances at over $1 billion, I think it's 1.2 billion last year, is phenomenal. It's what's keeping ZANU-PF alive. So, as I say, no taxation without representation. It's as simple as that. You have no voice in the country that you're supporting with your funds, and it's your own homeland. And to be ignored and be silenced with a vote from your own homelands, it must be. I can only imagine the situation that you're in. It's horrendous. It's not something that I'd be happy about at all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much there, John. I don't know if Mambo Shoshe has dropped. Diaspora Affairs co-host, did you want to come in?
Yes, I can take the first 5 speakers.
Yep.
So that they can ask questions. Let's try to keep it short. Then John can help us answer some of the questions. So we start with Sandra.
Okay, my only question is, Zimbabweans have been traveling everywhere. We do a hard diligence to do anything. We're being disrespected in South Africa right now. We need change in Zimbabwe. Right now is the party CCC to lead us to a different perspective. It's a good thing. This is what I want in Zimbabwe. Everybody, this is what they want against everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandra. From there, we go to Andre. Andre, can you go ahead? Okay, from Andre, let's go to It's All, something like that. It's All, can you try to speak?
Hi, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon.
So it looks like Itso is gone.
Itso, we've lost you. Andre, can you try to speak?
Sorry.
Yes, go ahead, Itso. Okay, Itso is lost. Andre, can you try? Andre is unmuted but can't speak as well. Yes, go ahead, Itso.
I just have a few questions for the reality of the diaspora vote. So I was listening to Chief Ndiweni while we was speaking. So I just want to know, Chief Ndiweni, now that you have sent the petition to the UK government and you are very confident that they can take some action, will it be in line with the constitution of Zimbabwe, as you were saying, for other external to navigate or advocate for the voting rights, considering that UK is a former Zimbabwe colony? That's the first question. And the second question is, we have countries like Uganda, Rwanda, and all those countries. They have a lot of issues when it comes to their own, but we haven't had any external countries helping on the part. If we look at the previous election in Uganda, it was a mess. And I think it will be different for Zimbabwe. And as you were rightly saying, that the embassies might have generals and stuff like that, SANPF staff. How now will you navigate that part, even if they are granted? And as I was listening to some other posts from ZANPF, they are saying we need the sanctions removed for us to grant you the diaspora vote. What do you say about that? Thank you very much. Over to you, my co-host, for now.
Thank you for that. John, can you respond to that?
Yeah. Hi. Oh, it's so. I'm not the chief. I'm not. I'm a mere British subject. The chief is something different. He is a magnificent chap who speaks on behalf of citizens in Zimbabwe, and what he says, I think, is very, very important. But what I would say is let's forget the word colony and sanctions, please. These are total distractions. They mean nothing. Okay. The current situation in the reason we're targeting UK government and really the Americans and the Canadians is the amount of money that they're putting into Zimbabwe. I think last year the British government sent investments and aid to the value of £200 million, which is about $280 million. So these are the people to influence simply because of the skin in the game that they have. So that's our reasoning. and it's a long struggle. This is not going to have instant results. We're not going to expect the UK government to turn around and say that we're going to support all these embassies, or we're going to allow you to vote in the UK. It's just not going to happen. So we're here to influence, and we're here to lobby, and we're here to raise awareness of the practicalities and the injustices in Zimbabwe. And I wouldn't say that's as far as we can go, but that's our strength. Now, as far as the embassies, as I say, the embassies, we don't want to even involve them, because if we can bypass the embassies, we will create our own diaspora vote, because we're not in Zimbabwe. We're outside of Zimbabwe. We don't need embassies who will simply fiddle the vote anyway. So our plan is not to be using the embassies at all. So immaterial of who's there. It doesn't matter whether they're generals or whoever. We're not going to be using their influence. Now, we had a previous question about what we want to do in Zimbabwe with regard to CCC. And the problems of xenophobia within South Africa. And yes, I can see what is going on. You've got more support in the opposition in South Africa than in the government of South Africa. But the same situation would apply. A petition to that same government will still have an effect. It's not to say that it will have zero effect. It will have an effect. So in that respect, it is worth doing and worth trying to support. Now, it's a personal view of mine. It's not my decision, and I can't comment on the new CCC. But I do feel, from an opposition point of view, you represent the best chance of governing in Zimbabwe at some point in the future. That's all I can really say on that matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Let's go to Youngstone Zikiti.
Yes, thank you very much. I just want to speak about the Zimbabweans who are based in South Africa at the moment. We have all seen how the by-elections went in South Africa. We have seen that immigration is now an election issue in South Africa. And we've seen that there are a lot of leftist parties that are rising in South Africa, and all those parties are saying illegal immigrants must leave South Africa. At the moment, I know there are like more than 4 million Zimbabweans who are not documented, who are residing in South Africa. So it's actually an opportunity for CCC, because all these people, they might be chucked out of South Africa by the end of this year. So I just want to know if we have a strategy already. Are we already engaging those people who are residing in South Africa, so that we can mobilize them, we can prepare them to go back to Zim, or we can just let them know that they are supposed to go back to Zim, register to vote, and vote for CCC. It's actually a big opportunity for CCC, because if all these people are sent away from South Africa, it means it's actually a high number of voters that we are expecting the next election. So yeah, my question is, are we engaging those kind of people who are staying in South Africa? And my other question is, with the rate that the registrar the office is issuing out ID documents, are they going to cope up with the number of people who are going to come back from South Africa to go back to Zim and maybe get some ID documents and be able to register to vote? So it's actually an issue, because at the moment we have an issue whereby the ZEC is actually going out, the ZEC mobile registration teams, they are going out, they do not have the registry office, so they're just going out, people do not have IDs. It's actually an issue. I don't know how best we can tackle that issue, but I feel like we need to do something. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you so much. I can see that the chief is now in the audience. Chief, can you kindly request the mic so that you can come up here and speak to the audience? Kindly request the mic. If you are failing, you can leave the space, then come back in, then you will be able to take the mic. Thank you so much. Let's go to Big Nine Lives.
Thank you very much. My question is to ZHRO and the chief, and also to Chief Ndiweni, if they can hear me. Do you guys think it's a good idea to take Zimbabwean Electoral Commission to a constitutional court over this matter of diaspora vote? Because I see no point in taking ZANU-PF to court over it, since they are regarded, under normal circumstances, they should be regarded as another player in the elections. So do you think it's actually a good idea to take ZEC to a constitutional court to see if they can implement the diaspora vote?
We will take one more question before we go to the responses by the chief. So we'll go to Muzanzi Kandava. Muzanzi Kandava.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, my brother. Yeah, you pronounced it well. Thank you very much. Just to ask, usually I see when we're discussing about voting and people going to vote, I don't know whether we've got much problem with people voting, although I have seen that probably the voters are declining currently. But we don't discuss the challenge in Zimbabwe. Usually, it's the aftermath of voting. Even if the results are saying probably the opposition has won, we always had a problem with the military. So I would like maybe some time for us to ponder on that issue, because we remember that MTC won twice in Zimbabwe, but they never obtained the state power. So sometimes we may talk about voting. We know that probably the opposition can win the election, but then the aftermath is a problem, because we have never discussed the issue of how to handle the militarization of the state and how the opposition can obtain power. I don't believe that probably even if MDC win or CCC wins, that the military can give the power to the opposition, because the opposition has been always regarded as a puppet of the West, or so to say. So I don't know how we can bypass that issue. It's really a problem in Zimbabwe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for those questions. I'll give time back to Sister Patricia so that she can introduce our main guest for tonight, and then the guest will be able to answer those questions during his initial delivery. Over to you, Sister Patricia.
Thank you so much for that. Is Mambo Shoshe not able to pick up the mic, because I can see he's here? Yeah, please, would you like to go ahead and introduce Chief Ndiweni, Mambo Shoshe?
Thank you very much, Patricia. Let me take this opportunity to introduce, I call him my chief, our chief, Chief Ndiweni. President Chamisa says we shouldn't be called chiefs. We are actually kings. So I will refer him as a king, and I've seen him writing somewhere saying he is a king, king of Ndabazinduna. Ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, we'll give up to our chief, one of the most outspoken, but also very defiant Zimbabwean traditional kings or Zimbabwean traditional chiefs. Chief Ndiweni, could you please unmute and address the Zimbabwean people and non-Zimbabweans that are here, citizens of the world?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Baba. Thank you very much, Chief Sosa there. Thank you very much indeed for this opportunity. Thank you very much to all those who are in attendance. If I may say, all protocols observed. I must extend my apologies for joining you somewhat late, just London traffic and London meetings and the likes. Today we are discussing obviously the issue of the vote, the diaspora vote, which is a pertinent issue for us. I think really from where I'm sitting right now, when it comes to the 2023 elections, there is no more important an issue, a topic, than the diaspora vote. Whatever our political views are, whatever our aspirations are, we have to bear that in mind, that within Zimbabwe as a country, we have over 5.5 million plus Zimbabweans scattered to the four corners of the earth. These are Zimbabwean citizens. And by being a Zimbabwean citizen, and indeed by being a human being, you are afforded a right, a human right, protected right by the very pinnacle of our organizations, the United Nations. You can cascade that down to the African Union. You can cascade that down to the SADC region for us in Zimbabwe. And you can further cascade that right to our constitution also in Zimbabwe. That it is a simple matter of voting. That you and I and everybody have that intrinsic right to have a vote. Nowhere at all in all documentations, all legal documentations one may look at, does it say or stipulate that that human right to vote is curtailed if you leave the geographical or the political boundaries of the Republic of Zimbabwe. That doesn't exist. All that we're talking about is the vote. And so really we've got to take that in its broader sense, because only the previous week, nations were gathered in Geneva, in Switzerland. And there at that particular gathering, it was under the auspices of the United Nations Universal Human Rights Periodic Review. They were looking at human rights. They do that in batches of countries every now and again. I don't know what the frequency is, but every time they'll pick up a group of countries and look at their human rights and discuss their human rights and produce a report and produce work for those respective governments to do to improve their human rights. This time it was our turn, obviously with a number of other countries. But when it came to our turn, the nations were scathing. They were forthright, they were to the point. Even though our Minister of Legal Affairs, Zambia, was there, he struggled in trying to hold back the tide of challenges, country after country, country after country, Zimbabwe government, Zimbabwe government, Zimbabwe government, all honing down on the human rights. And within those human rights, we obviously have the right to vote. That's part and parcel of that. So one cannot say just because they were talking about all of human rights, they did not point a finger at the voting issue. Clearly they did. It was part and parcel of that. And if anyone was in any doubt at all whether that was true, it was the enunciations that came from the United Nations delegations themselves, who debunked our government's narrative. That narrative up until now has been the the international arena must remove the targeted sanctions in order for the Zimbabwean diaspora to get the vote. That United Nations delegations said there was no link whatsoever between the two issues. They were forthright. They even went to the extra limit and said it is human rights first. So in our discussions, we are saying it is the vote first. It is the Zimbabwean diaspora vote first, because it was not us that made that link. It was our government was trying to create that link. And so really in that regard, that gives us an extra feather in our cap, really to say that the doors are wide open for the Zimbabwean diaspora vote. But we may even go further back and look over the last 3 to 4 elections we've had in Zimbabwe, whereby the international observers have continuously said in their report after all of our elections, please may the Zimbabwean diaspora be given a vote. Can they be given a vote? So in no uncertain terms, the international arena has put its cards on the table. They have shown what they want. They've given the Zimbabwean government a directive to say, you should be doing this. So there's no question on that. But in this current situation, what is new and what is encouraging for the likes of myself who are going for democracy is that now we are seeing the African countries coming on board one by one. South Africa was also forthright in its answer at Geneva. We're seeing different countries coming on board, the likes of Angola, Zambia, and a few others as well, coming on board to say, no, the vote is important, it is crucial, the diaspora should be given that vote. And so when we look at the Zimbabwean diaspora, it is the issue that over the last 30 years, this community has been asking our government, can we have the vote? They started by engaging our government. There was no reply to that. They then went on to go and litigate against the government twice in the high courts of Zimbabwe. They lost those litigations, but they brought their points over. In the last high court litigation in Zimbabwe high courts, the judge sitting in jurisdiction of the matter ruled and said, the vote is not substantive. Now, that's a profound statement to be done by a judge, particularly when we are looking at a human right. It is difficult to square the circle that a human right is not substantive. And so for us, we're looking at that as an erroneous judgment, erroneous judgment. Other Zimbabwean diasporas took the matter to the SADC region under the auspices of the African Union Human and People's Rights Charter and tried their luck there. At that particular hearing, our government gave the answer that it did not have enough funds to facilitate a diaspora vote. And so they lost on that particular issue as well. So we can see the paper trail. This matter of the Zimbabwean diaspora vote did not suddenly occur or just suddenly jump out of nowhere. It has a well documented history. Different groups, different people scattered all over the world, all Zimbabwean, trying to push this matter forward. For the likes of myself, I'm a latecomer to it, and I've also joined that bandwagon as a latecomer because I have my fellow Zimbabweans who've been at it for much longer than I have. But I've also joined this bandwagon. I've joined this campaign to say it is an honorable and a right campaign for the Zimbabwean diaspora vote. Now, after that length of time, when our government has been consistent in saying no, there comes a point in time when we have the right as citizens to engage in a diaspora election on our own, by ourselves. There's nothing stopping us at all from doing that. We've got all the support we need in the international arena to do that, to hold that vote, to put all those things in place so that a vote can be conducted and facilitated. How that vote will have meaning in Zimbabwe, that then comes into the arena of the international relations. It comes into the arena of international engagements. Our government has been trying to engage the international arena for a long time without much success. And so this is the forte, this is the area whereby a diaspora vote, when done, comes to take effect during those discussions. But more importantly, whether we like it or not, in 2023, the election will be disputed. Because I heard a short while ago, a number of the commentators talking about this matter on this platform, that up until now, the ruling party has been very reluctant to leave State House, to allow another political party to take over the reins. So after 41 years, we can say pretty 100% that there will be disputed and there'll be a conversation about that. But on this particular occasion, when we've done the diaspora vote, that conversation will be different. It will be new. It will be new and different in the sense because we now would have an election that was conducted globally, that has figures attached to it. An election that was monitored internationally, an election that had strategic oversight upon it internationally. So it is an election that is unquestionably free and fair, and it is accountable and can be passed as a genuine election. To bring that to the table, to say when the elections are disputed, let us factor in the diaspora vote that come in, those 5.5 million plus Zimbabweans who come in to vote for that particular election. They will be voting in exactly the same way as a person votes in Zimbabwe. They will be voting for exactly the same candidates that are there in Zimbabwe. So we're looking at a presidential vote, and we're looking at the member of parliament's votes, and we would also be looking at whether the council of votes as well should come into that. So there's no difference at all in who they'll be voting for. All we are saying is that that vote from an individual diaspora voter must carry equal weight to the vote of an individual Zimbabwe in Zimbabwe, to the extent that we are trying to close the door on the idea, on the notion that maybe the diaspora vote can only vote for 10 members of parliament, or maybe 20 million members of parliament, or maybe 30 members of parliament. We're rejecting all of that. We are saying the Zimbabwean diaspora vote carries equal weight as the domestic vote, so that when the diaspora vote, their casting in the ballot box will be counted in the same way, and that is how to be done. But because of the history that we have in Zimbabwe, particularly when it comes to the Zimbabwean Election Commission, it has been found wanting on many levels. We've been working with so many organizations in Zimbabwe and in the international arena, and they speak with one voice. The minute you say ZEC, the Zimbabwean Election Commission, the minute you say that, they all say that that organization is not fit for purpose. So in the Zimbabwean diaspora vote, we are not working with ZAC. And also, it stands to reason that obviously we cannot work with the current government as well on that. And if we're looking at the situation and talking about it in a normal way, if we were to include working with ZAC or the government of Zimbabwe in this diaspora vote, then the take up to the vote would be virtually zero, because we are looking at people who've had to leave Zimbabwe for whatever reasons. But the bottom line is that they were not happy with the government and what it was doing. And then to say to those very same people that here we are conducting a vote with the same government that you left behind, we would not have many Zimbabwean diasporas registering on that electoral roll that we are creating right now. And so we've been very clear and straight to the point to say that on our Zimbabwean diaspora election, ZEC will not be part of it, nor the government will not be part of it. One then may say, well, Chief, has this vote you're talking about any validity or strength or any use at all? It has a huge potential. The use is there on a daily basis, as I was alluding to earlier on, when I was talking about a disputed election, when I was talking about the roadmap going forward of how that can be implemented. The diaspora vote will be implemented in Zimbabwe. It is normal for the current government to say it won't. It is normal for the current government to say it won't recognize that. But we are on a roadmap here. And that is what I've been tweeting about for quite some time, that the Zimbabwean diaspora vote is a roadmap. With my eye and with the eye of the other people working in the diaspora vote, looking forward to say we will come to difficulties with our electoral process. And when we come to those difficulties, have we prepared anything in advance to address those difficulties? One of those preparations is to have a Zimbabwean diaspora vote. For those very reasons I've been mentioning earlier on, that it is something that is already internationally recognized. It is internationally recognized already. It's recognized in written form, it is recognized in diplomatic discussions, and it is further recognized in the meeting that happened in Geneva as well. So we are looking at something that really is at the table in front of the Zimbabwean diaspora. They're the ones who can only pick it up and facilitate that. But in facilitating the Zimbabwean diaspora vote, they'll be allowing the international arena, they'll be allowing the African continent, they would be allowing the SADC region to come in to Zimbabwe and to sit down with our government to say no. Let us be professional. Let us include the diaspora vote. They have done it. These are the figures that came out from that vote. These are the results that came out from that vote. And so they need to be affected within the current election process. A figure or a percentage that comes out that brings what we're talking into focus is that in 2018, our last elections, the total number of Zimbabweans who voted was 4.8 million. The total number of Zimbabweans who were denied was over 5 million. We're looking at 51% of the electorate was denied. You cannot find that percentage anywhere else in the world except in Zimbabwe, where you are looking at a nation conducting in commas what it says is an election. But then you have to question, is that a valid election? Can you really call it an election when over half of your potential electorate have been left out? And so these are the things that we're bringing on to the table to say we have to change course and we have to see how we can do that. As the My Right to Vote organization, that has been already in the process of creating a database for that electoral vote. We are working with other organizations, the Zimbabwean human rights organizations, the Restoration of Human Rights to Zimbabwe organizations, and no doubt other organizations to try and bring this to the table so that indeed we can do this election and we can go forward to do it. On the matter of whether Zimbabweans should go home to Zimbabwe to vote. Yes, of course, they can, if they are able to do so. And that is if they are able to do so. Because the reality of the matter is that we all know that times are hard and they're difficult. We know that these Zimbabweans in the diaspora have put down roots. They are in work or full-time work or full-time study or something or other. So the possibility of them going home to vote is quite low, very, very low, probably not even in double figures percentage-wise, that could happen. But more to the point, on a practical level, it is physically impossible to get over 5.5 million or even 6 million, no matter how many the Zimbabwean diaspora are. It's physically impossible to get them back to Zimbabwe. What mode of transport would they use to get back? We have 1 or 2 aeroplanes flying to Zimbabwe per day. That's maybe 100 seats. At our borders, they're already overfloated and overcrowded. We don't have that many buses either to get them all there. So even if one had a wish to say, can they go home to register and vote, you are looking at a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage. The logical and ethical and right answer to all of this is that the Zimbabwean diaspora votes from wherever they are in the diaspora. And it is not rocket science to do that. We have countries like Chile and a few other countries who have been doing an electronic voting. It's done, it's credible, it's been tested. So we're not inventing the wheel. The wheel has been invented. Other countries are saying we have done it and we are doing it. That's what other countries are saying. So there's no impediment for the diaspora, wherever they are in the world, to vote. In fact, it would benefit them because if you're looking at an electronic voting system, you'll be voting sitting in your home, sitting at the restaurant, sitting in your car. There'll be no queues. You'll be doing it on your phone, on your laptop, on your iPad, wherever it is. And if it's a situation whereby there are quite a number who don't have those devices, then there are other solutions that can be found to enable them to vote, like voting in areas or places under the jurisdiction of SADC or under the jurisdiction of the United Nations. That can be done for the purpose of giving the Zimbabwean diaspora that confidence, for giving them that security, for giving them that belief that their vote is genuine, it is trusted, it is cherished, and it will not be taken and rigged from them. And so really, we are pushing hard for this. And I must reiterate, there is no legal requirement for us to ask or to seek permission from the current government in Zimbabwe in order for us Zimbabweans to pull ourselves together, to conduct an election together as Zimbabweans. There's no requirement for us to ask the government of the Republic of Zimbabwe to do that. And my final comment on this particular issue is that any political party that is worth its salt, that is a genuine political party, will not find anything challenging with the Zimbabwean diaspora voting. Because for that political party, they will be looking at new membership. They'll be canvassing in the international arena to get even more membership to come through for their political party. So it is on that particular level. And to bring us to remembrance, when we are saying the Zimbabwean diaspora voter is about 5.5 million plus, let us remember that in 2018, according to the figures that we have, only about 2 million votes put the current president in State House in Zimbabwe. So when you look at those figures to say, do you mean to say, Chief, only 2 million votes put the current president in State House when there are over 5 million who are denied to vote? Logically, it does not make sense. Thank you very much. If I may hand over to the host.
Well. Thank you very much, Chief Ndiweni, for that detailed explanation. And I'm sure you answered a lot of unasked questions in the process. Before I bring in someone who is going to testify to what Chief Ndiweni is doing, the work that he's doing, let me just encourage someone here. Please jump onto that link over there so that you can donate to Change Radio so that we continue to broadcast these messages. As we are speaking right now, Change Radio is broadcasting live to the rest of Zimbabwe. People are now having a way of hearing people that are speaking on spaces. They can't be on Twitter, but they are getting to hear Chief Ndiweni and everyone else through Change Radio. So let's support them. The work that we are doing, Chief Ndiweni, is getting everywhere, and you'll be keen, as I've said to John before you, that you'll be excited to hear what other people have already started doing in terms of the diaspora vote. She can't. The lady can't connect on Twitter, but I'm gonna call her so that she just gives us an update of the amount of work that she's doing and other external attendees, because we sincerely.
Hello, are you still here, Mambo Shoshe, or have you dropped?
I think he has dropped.
Okay, I think we might have to take some questions in the meantime, because I know that Singi, I don't know if that's how you pronounce your name, you've been holding on for a while, and if you wanted to ask Chief Ndiweni a question, please do go ahead while we wait for Mambo Shoshe to return. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much to everyone here tuned in and everyone who made the time to be at this wonderful time and giving us the opportunity to talk about something that's really important to us all. I'm a young Zimbabwean living in the United States. I'm a student. I wanted to know, or specifically ask Chief Ndiweni, what ways us, young Zimbabweans who cannot, not in the current situation, or by 2023 at least go back home and vote. What can we do to facilitate something like a diaspora vote from the United States or maybe other similar countries as well? Because I'm pretty sure there are many people in the diaspora out there, students and people who've been here for many, many years. Is there a particular government that is in charge of organizing for this? That way we can submit our thoughts and maybe work together in a concerted effort to make this happen.
So would Chief Ndiweni like to go ahead? Please, can you please mute yourself?
Thank you very much indeed. Just to give you a heads up, we started the My Right to Vote campaign and we launched an organization called My Right to Vote .org. That's where we've got the website whereby we had been already doing some registrations prior to that. But we'll continue doing those registrations whilst we get on board with other organizations, the Zimbabwean Human Rights Organization and the Restoration of Human Rights for Zimbabwe and other ones, whereby then we would like to make a bigger platform whereby people can register to vote. The biggest thing that we are looking for is those numbers of those people coming on board to register, so that even if you are in the US or Canada or wherever you are, if you formed yourself into small little groups and the likes there, if you can pass the word on forward to other similar-minded individuals, passing the details over to whoever wishes to register on that, That will give the campaign the impetus that it needs. Because at the end of the day, even if we're looking at taking the matter and working closely with the United Nations and bringing our database and our results to the world in 2023, when the elections happened in Zimbabwe, we need to show a substantive database that can say, yes, indeed, there are Zimbabweans out there, and yes, indeed, they voted. So those are the practical things we're looking at doing. In the meantime, if those words and if that information could be spread far and wide about how to register, that would be the biggest thing that could help us out. But also, as an organization, and I'm sure working with the other organizations that we're about to come together with, we will be looking at opening a number of offices all over the world. At the moment, I know that the group that I'm working with, we have an office in South Africa, and we have links in Australia, and we're looking to have links in the US as well. But I'm sure with the other organizations coming on board, we should be able to manage to have offices in most of the countries where Zimbabweans are put in there. Some of those offices may be cyber offices whereby it's a telephone number, it's an email, and that's how you communicate with it. But it would help you and help us to facilitate the creation of that database so that when we choose to have that election, you people are on that database. We can reach you. We can send the emails out everywhere, whether it's by a particular app that we'll find or whether it's directly to say election day is on such a day. If you want to come and vote on it, here are the details for that. So it is about really keeping that conversation going. And really, as you watch the space, I think things will develop very, very, very quickly indeed, because we are beginning to have engagements with governments, beginning obviously with the one that everyone saw here in the United Kingdom, that began with My Right to Vote, Zimbabwean Human Rights Organizations, and the Restoration for Zimbabwean Human Rights. We three organizations took that petition, the Diaspora Vote petition, to number 10 Downing Street in the United Kingdom. And within a very short space of time, a matter of days, a positive response came through. And on the 10th and the 11th of January this year, we had discussions with members of the House of Lords and members of the House of Commons. And so having started from there, we will accelerate our engagements, especially on the African continent, whereby we are saying our African brothers and sisters must come up to par, must stand up, and must go and knock on the door of the government of Zimbabwe to say, you have your people in our lands. Give them the vote. Thank you.
Okay, Patricia, now I have Sophia. I think we'll allow you to speak now so that, Sophia, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mambo Sose, and to our chief, our king, Ndiweni. We just want to thank you so much for this motivation that saw diasporans, Zimbabwean diasporans all over the world asking themselves that, you know what, we want this vote, we want these reforms. What can we do as individuals in the different places around the world where we are to amplify this call for the diasporan vote? So as the Diaspora Network for Change in the CCC, we got together and we managed to get your petition that you presented to number 10 Downing Street. And we then took that petition and we managed to mobilize diasporan Zimbabweans all across the globe in 60 countries, to be specific, to then go and call for these reforms in different organizations. We were then targeting Amnesty International, the United Nations, and because we knew that Zimbabwe was among the 12 countries that were going to be reviewed in the United Nations in Geneva, the UPR that just happened a few days ago. We then presented the petition that you presented to number 10. And I'm very happy to report back that so far we have managed to successfully present this petition and hand it over to over 35 countries, over 70 organizations, international organizations, including the elders in the United Kingdom as well, have received this petition. And we have that everybody at the age of 18 has the right to participate in elections at both local and national levels. And simply by virtue of being diasporans does not strip away our right, our entitlement to being Zimbabweans. So therefore, we are still covered by that, and we are demanding our vote. We are demanding for these electoral reforms to be implemented so that we can have a free and fair Zimbabwe, where we feel that we are participating in the survival of our families back home through remittances, as mentioned before. And this is our homeland, this is our motherland. We would like to see the best for Zimbabwe and for the lives of all Zimbabweans to have the dignity that they deserve, and not just for a few elites that are corrupt and looking out for their own, but for all Zimbabweans to live a life of dignity. And we just want to thank you for this inquiry. We just want to thank you for lighting the way. And we just want to thank as well My Right to Vote, the ZHRO.
I think we might have lost Sophia there and Mambo Soshe again.
Yes, I think she's gone a bit. May I extend my great gratitude and thanks to this wonderful news, this wonderful work that has been
petition to spread it out the world. I can tell you, how you even have a representative even in Bolivia.
Okay, I think she's breaking up. Did you want to go ahead, Chief Ndiweni?
Thank you so much, and we are continued. We are fired up, and we are motivated even more to see this diaspora vote happening. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Sophia. I think Chief Ndiweni and John and all the others in the United Kingdom that are pushing this effort, you are excited to hear that your petition is gone to over 35 countries around the world. And we call upon Zimbabweans that are here to join these efforts so that we push. John spoke about pressure, putting pressure on the government. This is the kind of pressure that we need. And I can tell you, pressure works. I've seen pressure working in so many countries and even in our situation in Zimbabwe. So thank you so much, Sophia, and everyone else who has been involved in these efforts. Back to you, Chief Ndiweni, you might want to comment.
Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you very much indeed. No, I was just commenting and I was saying I am truly humbled and really over the moon to hear such productive work, such work really that is taken over where people have heard the news and they've taken it upon themselves to say, you know what, I don't need
these efforts.
I don't need accreditation. I am a Zimbabwean. I'm a Zimbabwean citizen. I have a human right, and I can go and ask any government or any organization in the world to try and help me facilitate my human right, because I'm a member of the human race. I'm a Homo sapien, which means I have that right. So I congratulate them thoroughly, and I urge all the other people who can to also take it on board, so that really, in effect, all governments are receiving the same message that the diaspora of Zimbabwe want to vote, and that when we do organize this independent vote, that they should take it seriously. Because we're not just, as I was saying, asking the Zim government to give us that right to vote and stopping there. We are going past that. We are saying we will facilitate an independent election, whether you like it or not, and then we will announce those results in 2023, whether you like it or not, and we will give it to the international arena for them to affect it, for them to apply the pressure onto it, so that when you do announce a rigged election, the international world will say, here's a genuine election amongst the Zimbabwean diaspora. You need to think again, you need to sit down, and we need to come to a reasonable, rational understanding that the people must speak, must have a vote. So I'm over the moon by that result.
Thank you so much for that, Chief Ndiweni. I think we've got a few hands up. I think Big Nine had spoken previously, but I don't know if he had finished. And then is it Mtini had also spoken. But if you do have any questions, please do feel free to ask. And then we can hear again from John, and then I'll hand over to CC Diaspora Network to invite other speakers. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask that the problem in Zimbabwe is the attitude, because ZANU-PF understands that what Mhlonishwa Chief Ndiweni is saying is like asking ZANU-PF to go out of power. So that is the challenge we're having. It is the attitude of ZANU-PF. Most of the things which Zimbabweans are pushing for are legitimate reasons for us to get the liberty, but ZANU-PF understands that. So my question is that if it fails, what are the other options do we have? Because I don't see ZANU-PF yielding to that, because they understand what does it mean. Because millions of Zimbabweans outside the country, if they vote, they can vote ZANU-PF out of power. So that is the problem we're having in Zimbabwe. So I just want to find out what are the mitigation plans for us to say, if it fails, this is what's going to happen. Thank you very much.
Yes, no, I hear you. I hear you. For us, let me start my question by saying it only takes a student at university 3 years to get a degree. After 3 years, you have your degree, you have studied your subject, you know it well. For us Zimbabweans, we have been studying our subject for 41 years. We know our subject and we understand it. And so in answer to your questions, I know 100% the Zim government will not budge. I know that 100%. They will not want to budge on the Zimbabwean diaspora vote, which means it then gives us that impetus, which I was talking about earlier on, that we need to register now in the Zimbabwean diaspora for our independent election amongst the Zimbabwean diaspora. This is the mitigation we're bringing in to say, we know they will reject the idea of a Zim diaspora vote. And we are saying we still need to do it anyway. For what reason? It is for the reason that when the elections are finished in 2023, and we have a constitutional crisis in 2023, and the ruling party in 2023 does not want to concede, we have a new player on the field. That is the Zimbabwean diaspora vote. That has credibility attached to it. That is a full election attached to it. That has never been there before to come onto that table. So that even if there are discussions at that table in 2023, what to do or how to form a next government, the voice of the diaspora must be sitting at that table. It will not be a discussion between ZANU-PF and one or two other political parties. No. It will be a discussion between the political parties and the Zimbabwean diaspora sitting at that table to determine a way forward for the new government. But more than that, the mitigation of us to go and register in the diaspora and to vote in the diaspora is even more long-term than that, because we are now laying the groundwork. That is the foundation of our groundwork if we choose to take this matter to the United Nations General Assembly, or if we choose this matter to the United Nations Security Council, so that we may have a number of resolutions coming from the United Nations vis-a-vis the diaspora vote in Zimbabwe and how it cannot be left out whatsoever. So when we look at these mitigations, they are powerful mitigations that could stop an illegitimate government before they've even spent 100 days in office. It is so important, good people, that we take this mitigation step of registering and voting, because it has a powerful outcome in many, many arenas. We know ZANU-PF government will not accept the diaspora vote. That is why we have to put in this mitigation now of creating that vote ourselves, so that when it comes to the table in 2023, we have done our work as the Zimbabwean diaspora, and we'll be sitting on the high chairs to determine our future's trajectory. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Big Nine Lights, are you willing to say something?
Oh yes, definitely. Right. Yeah. A big thank you, Chief Ndiweni, and my sister Sophia, for all the hard work that you've been doing behind the scenes. This is indeed good news to I'm sure most of us in the diaspora. Now, to Chief Ndiweni, you spoke about excluding ZEC from the diaspora plebiscite, which is understandable. But my question to you is, do you have any hopes or any ideas on if you're going to invite ZANU-PF to take part? Because I suspect that if you don't involve them, or not involve, but invite them to take part in the diaspora election, they might turn around and say that they don't recognize the results because they were not consulted and they were not part and parcel of it. So do you think it's a good idea to sort of like keep them up to date every step of the way, regardless of whether they want to be part of it or not, so that tomorrow they don't go ahead and say, no, we don't recognize this result because we were not part and parcel of it? That's my question. Thank you.
John would like to respond before the chief. Can you go ahead, John?
Yes, we've discussed this at some length, and of course we'd invite ZANU-PF to the party, to the diaspora vote, and they'd have to register like all political parties with a donation of some description, which will make us laugh, of course. But yeah, I only suspect they will refuse to register as a maneuver to avoid what you've just said, that they were involved and they lost. So it's a difficult one, but yeah, perhaps the chief can come in there as well.
Go ahead, Chief. Oh, the chief has dropped whilst we are waiting for him to reconnect. Let's go to Veiko. Veiko, you have been there for a long time.
Thanks a lot. Thanks to the chief, thank the host and the co-host. I had 4 questions, but some of them have been asked. So I will maybe have 2. The first question is, I once go around. It was meeting some youth there around the place which I stay in South Africa here. So most of the youth, what I've noticed, they don't have IDs. They left Zimbabwe before they even turned 18 years. And a number of people really, they want and they were happy for this diaspora vote since they cannot go back home and cast their vote in Zimbabwe. So my question to the chief is, what mechanism are there to ensure that these people also can have maybe access to vote if the diaspora votes successfully? Then the second question is, so how and who will conduct voter registration for diasporan vote, considering the time left and the anticipated number of voters? Those are the two questions I have now. Thank you.
Thank you, Veko. You can go ahead, John.
I think I could probably answer both of those questions if you want.
Yes, go ahead.
Certainly in South Africa, I understand exactly what you're saying about the provisions with no identity papers. And it's sad there's going to have some sort of mechanism to prove who they were, whether it's old birth certificate or affidavits from parents and such like. This can be carried out, but that would impinge upon the timescales, as I think he was talking about earlier. But yes, there are ways and means legally to identify people, and they go to great lengths to do that in the UK. As for registering the time, I mean, as the chief has alluded to, we don't need to have a parallel election to the 2023 elections that Zek are talking about. That's unnecessary completely. The elections can be held really when the My Right to Vote campaign is ready, when there is a sufficient database of names, peoples, and proven identities within the database that they will building. That is when My Right to Vote will be ready to take a vote. And let's hope it's going to be early in 2023, because we need to preempt the 2023 ZEC's pre-rigged elections. I think it's important that the United Nations and other countries see the real reaction in the diaspora, and whether ZANU-PF register with the My Right to Vote or not, there will be a box to tick for a ZANU-PF supporter. It's only reasonable whether they want to be part of it or not. There are people, certainly in the UK, who are members of ZANU-PF. They run their own organisation here in the UK, ZANU-PF UK, and they claim to be representing Europe and the United Kingdom. So clearly there are people here in the European area, presumably laundering money. We can only assume what they're actually doing. Maybe they're laundering money. Maybe they're helping with the, rigging of various votes and organising corporations and selling to the Chinese. I'm suspecting they're doing all of this all the time, because they all seem to be driving 4x4 BMWs, Mercedes, and Land Rovers. So that's the sort of people we do have. So yeah, there needs to be a box for ticking for ZANU-PF. And as for ZANU-PF's fake political parties that they sponsor, well, they can register them as much as they like, but they won't get any votes, will they? And again, it's another way of having an election that is both confidential and truthful. So, we win out on several levels there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, John. I will go to Musena Waritsoka.
Oh, thank you so much, host. Mine is not really a direct question, but it's just sort of like a thinking aloud. Really, I can see there's a few efforts that are already being made chief amongst them is the one that's being done by our dear King Ndiweni, and the other lady who spoke about sending a petition around. My other thought was people in the diaspora, in the meantime, are we not able to organize and mobilize and put up a register of those who are eligible to vote and to register in the diaspora, so that we have got tangible evidence, when all these things are done, when these petitions go through and they want to know exactly the numbers. Is it not something that we can start to do? Like, for example, people in London, in UK, in Manchester, they organize around a certain area, and say we have got an online registration of people that have got documents, that are Zimbabweans that are eligible to vote. And then we put up a list, those in South Africa, those in Australia, and produce the detail, a full list of people that are out there in the diaspora. And then in the event that Zimbabwe does not allow the diaspora vote, I think as a way of demonstration, as a way of protesting, we could even go ahead and have our own elections, parallel elections, diaspora elections during that time, in selected areas in diaspora where people can literally go and cast their votes if as a protest. It's just my view. And also that with these petitions, I think we must reach a point. I heard a brother who was asking to say, what if Zimbabwe refuses? I think we must get to a point where if a diaspora vote is not allowed in elections in Zimbabwe, the whole international community, including UN, SADC, AU, must consider that election a rigged election, which doesn't represent the will of the people. And the ZANU-PF and the government in Zimbabwe should be able to be told straight away that those are the consequences, and they should then face the consequences of that illegitimacy. Thank you.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Just to reinforce the situation, the petition was already presented back on the 2nd of December. We sent the petition to the House of Lords, and it would appear that the Swedish connection has sent that actual position to 35 other countries within the United Nations. And I thank them from the bottom of my heart for distributing that, because it is key to the next stages. Now, as for the practicalities, no, under no circumstances will there be a list of who's being registered to vote. No, no, no. Confidentiality and security are utmost. That list will be kept secret. And because it needs a substantial amount of computer time and database database capabilities, including the security and being unhackable, we're talking about being very careful in building that database, very careful indeed. It needs significant amounts of resources to create a secure database that people have got confidence in. And no, as I say, we cannot have a list of names. What we will know as the organizers is who's on that list and who they can vote for. Because unless that is done, it's simply going to be a position for ZANU-PF to target people, which we cannot have. So just to reinforce, the petition's already been sent. It's now gone out to 35 other countries who are presumably reading it at this moment in time. From that, we can leverage support in terms of cloud resourcing, in terms of supporting that database for the My Right to Vote, a secure database. And it needs to be substantial to hold up to 5 million people and their proofs of identity. Don't forget, this is equivalent to a government database. So it has to have that same level of security in terms of computer and non-hackability. And as I said earlier, the voting system is heavily encrypted to the point where nobody could find out who's voted for whom. There is no relationship between a person who has a vote and who they voted for. They will be given a token of some description, which they can then pass into a system to apply a one-off vote for them. So, you know, that will be taken into account, but that database has to be pretty significant and sophisticated to have the capacity required. And it's not something that can be done amateurishly. Otherwise, it's open to being hacked, it's open to being abused, and ZANU-PF will only be too happy to say we can't trust the result. So we have to be far better than them, far better than ZEC, and far more organized. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chief, would you like to go to respond as well, since you were having network problems?
Yes, thank you very much, co-host. No, my dear colleague John is right. He's right, really, in the fullness of his answer to that. If I'm adding anything on to what John has currently said, it would be just to simply say that as an organization or as any organization, if that organization has membership, it is well entitled to either contact its membership to say, we think the diaspora vote is a good initiative. Colleagues, can we encourage you to register on your own for that? That is well and truly accepted, as any political party is is entitled to say. So that is one route that could partly answer the question that was raised on the floor vis-a-vis a registrar which is visible. Yes, John was right. We can't have that because it crosses many boundaries that we shouldn't cross. But as an organization, if CCC chose to say, well, okay, we think the Zimbabwean Diaspora Initiative is good, they are well within their rights to say, colleagues, gentlemen, ladies and friends, can you please register on that registration in your time to go forward with that. That around will help everything. It will push us forward, because I must reiterate, even though I said it beforehand, the proof of the pudding of the existence of the Zimbabwean diaspora for 41 years has not been proven. This is the first occasion, folks, the first occasion the Zimbabwean diaspora is being given the platform to show itself, to say we are here, so that we empower those 35 countries to be able to stand up, to say we have credible evidence that that election is rigged, or we class that election as null and void, because here is the evidence at the side of us. So yes, that's all I can add to that at the moment.
Thank you so much. From there we go to Desmond, then Gandanga for change.
Thank you very much, Change Radio and Triple C Diaspora. My question to Chief Ndiweni, thank you, by the way, as well, for all your efforts. We salute you for what you're doing. My question to you is more or less around the technical applicability of the petition that you submitted to number 10 Downing Street. So my understanding from the discussions that the interventions that you've made together with John have been that the petition is specifically looking at establishing some sort of a database which will be used to conduct an election. Is this happening outside the normal voter, like the ordinary voters roll system that we have in Zimbabwe, where people actually register to get onto the voters roll for purposes of voting, for example, in by-elections or in the general election next, the harmonized election next year. So is the diaspora petition targeted at getting Zimbabweans onto the voters' roll, and being able to vote from whatever country they live in next year's election on election day, or is it part of some? Is it targeted at a different platform that creates a diaspora database that focuses on something a bit more parallel to the ZEC process? Because I sort of heard the exclusion of ZEC from this process. So I just want to get a clear picture. I hope you get the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed for the support. Thank you very much indeed for the question. In answer to your question, basically what we are looking for is we are looking for the creation of an election commission in the diaspora. At the moment, we are saying it is my right to vote, working with other organizations. So basically, we are saying ZEC is over there in Zimbabwe. There are question marks all over ZEC. The current government has indeed captured ZEC on that particular level. And because of those issues, we do not want to taint our election or what we want to do in the diaspora with that taintedness coming from ZEC. So we are creating a working database that will effect an election, whether on election day or before election day or whenever. But the whole idea is to be able to show the world that indeed the Zimbabwean diaspora does exist. Was up until now, it's been a lot of talk and conversation. It is difficult to approach nations or the United Nations or other people to say the Zimbabwean diaspora would like to vote, and they'll say, who are they? Where are they? How many of them are there? Are you speaking for yourself, or do they exist really? So really, as far as we're concerned, My Right to Vote and the other human rights organizations are working like an election commission, whereby we are saying we are on the human rights wagon. All political parties come on board so that you can actually take part in these elections. And we're inviting everyone to register, whether even someone is in ZANU-PF and they want to register, we're saying, come on board, register so you can vote when the elections are held in the diaspora. That is what we're looking at with that electoral registration. So that's step one. But also with that electoral registration, there'll be other things that will come into play, which we will release at some due date. But the first point of the whole thing is to get people registered so we can have a vote in the diaspora. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gandanga for Change, can you go ahead? Gandanga for Change, can you go ahead? Okay, whilst we are waiting, let's go to Sabuku, then Pinio Moyo.
Thank you very much, host. Greetings, Mangwe, Chief Ndiweni, and greetings to you, John. And first and foremost, I want to applaud the fantastic work that you guys are doing in this very passionate area of my life. I really want my vote. I'm out here in the diaspora, and my vote is my right, and I have to decide the future of my beloved country, Zimbabwe. My question to you, Chief, is I've seen the push that you did with the petition at Downing Street, which is very good. But some of us, we live in these influential Commonwealth countries. I'm talking about countries like Canada, Australia, New Zealand. And my question is, when we have such a push, can we have something synchronized that at the same time you making the push in England is the same, at the same time we'll be making the same push in these countries that we live in, so that we have one message going almost at the same time and reaching out to the same people? Because right now we have the push that you did is at a very good reception at Downing Street. And I think the same could have happened in Canberra, Australia, and Ottawa in Canada. So can we have that sort of synchronized push or create a certain mobilization group that will work hand in hand with you, and so that we send the same message at the same time. Thank you very much, Chief. And once again, thank you for the fantastic work you're doing. We really, really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Baba. Thank you very much indeed for that support. It's crucial, it's vital. And yes, you do raise a powerful point which we will take on board to make sure that as we progress along this roadmap, we can have that synchronization throughout the whole world where there are Zimbabweans, so that that effect can come home to roost. But I think the response we've had here in the UK already, it is beginning to work through, because it's not just a question of going to these different parliaments or different nations, but it's more so of going to them to say, can we also use your good offices so that you can link up with your bilateral countries to come together in this coalition of getting the Zim diaspora vote. So whilst we are heading, so like providing that a petition to one nation, it is also saying to that nation, when they do take the petition, could you use your good offices in our favor so that those nations that you see eye to eye with can quickly be brought on board this particular initiative, and we can go forward. But we take it on board that, yes, we must synchronize much more closely. If I could pass it over to John to add on to there, because John is very, very analytical in strategy-wise. Thank you, co-host.
I'm laughing at my analytical ability. I've got a mouthful of peanuts at the moment. I thought I could sneak them in. No, again, it's a very good question. The actual petition wording itself that the Swedish group used is actually on our website. That's at zhro.org.uk. There's an article on there and one of the sections about the petition handover, and it actually links directly to a PDF copy of the physical petition itself. That's how it was so easy for the Swedish group to actually pass it on to the United Nations. It's already been written, and it's a result of input, mainly by the chief, a little bit from me, and one or two other people. So it is a joint venture, and it's a written petition. It is not a petition of names to support a particular motion. It is evidence of why we need that situation. So maybe we can have another look at that and maybe update it, because there's been a lot of movement since we've written that original petition way back in at the end of November, early December last year. So in view of what's being said and the planning to go ahead in terms of building a competent, substantial database that is capable of expansion up to 5-6 million members, plus the political parties breakdown, you know, once we're underway with that, then we can produce coherent strategies for all the different countries. And you've raised a very important point, because most of those countries you mentioned are Commonwealth countries. We could even argue that the United States at one time was a Commonwealth country. So their legal system is quite similar indeed. So we've got a head start, if you like, in a lot of the formatting and the regulations that will be necessary to engage this. But yes, it will be an independent arrangement. It's an independent electoral commission. We're giving ZEC the sack, okay, because they're not fit for purpose, and no one wants to fire them. So we've fired them. The diaspora has fired ZEC. You can quote everyone on that. They're fired. They're no good. So we might as well do our own thing. There's nothing wrong with doing that. There's an impetus right now. If there's 35 other countries that are aware of what we're trying to do, that's very, very good. That's much better than I could have anticipated. And so I'm really, really pleased and so grateful to I keep calling the Swedish community, the Swedish CCC. And we need to have a chat with them at some point in the future, just to see the results of what they've done and help see if we can help them again. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Piniel. Piniel, can you unmute and go ahead?
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, everybody. I think the right to vote org should also take into consideration getting some of the members credited and go register people in areas like, let's say, right now I'm in Nebraska. If let's say they register people in Dallas there, I can travel there to prove that. Then they take those names which have been verified into the database, whereby you have representatives in some areas where people can go and register. And then to John, I think John touched something which I sent to Washington, and I was thinking the immigration system of Zimbabwe captures all these names of people going out, and I think those people in England, they have their own rigging system where they have their own diaspora vote, which exclude other people because they are known to be some people. Because if they can have an ambassador vote, what makes them facilitate their members to vote secretly? That's all I have.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I will return this time to our host so that she can give time for the final words to our speakers and give a vote of thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Diaspora Affairs host. It's just been an amazing time just listening to the people and the interest that people have in a diaspora vote. And I think when I spoke at the beginning, I talked about the fact people want to feel connected. They want to have that identity with their country of origin. It's so important that we have that identity. If you've ever heard about inclusion and feeling belonging, it's just one of those things that we all want and need. So it's so important that one day we would be able to vote and choose the leadership that can bring growth to the country. For nearly 42 years, we have seen Zimbabwe completely crash, and it is the people that are there that have suffered and continue to suffer. So if you think back to a 42-year-old in Zimbabwe today, the majority of 42-year-olds have never held a pay slip. They have no pension. They don't know what it is to work in a formal environment. I mean, it's good to have your own businesses and to have your own enterprises, but I think the challenge in Zimbabwe is that a lot of people do what is called kukia, so that is hustling, and they live hand to mouth, and so they are unable to afford medical care. So if someone falls ill in the family, people die young, people die early. The average age mortality rate in Zimbabwe is 62 years of age. And so there's all those things to consider. The young people have no future. They are the majority in Zimbabwe. So 67% of the population in Zimbabwe is under the age of 35. And yet they have no voice. They don't feel that they have a stake in the country. And so it's all of those issues. And they grow up not having any opportunities to really live a good life. So it's poor life outcomes for the majority of people. And when I think to the girls, the pregnancies, so young girls getting pregnant because they want a husband to look after them, it's a bit of a disaster because those young families then end up in divorce. And I hear a lot about young girls as young as 13 in prostitution now in Zimbabwe, or homelessness. So there's a lot of issues that happen, and I think we need need to see progress in the country. So if we can have a new government as soon as possible, it means that we can start working on some of these issues that we are seeing today. Now, I would have really wanted Mambo Soshi to come back and close us out, but I think he's having real challenges coming back on. And so I'm going to give the last word to John and then to Chief Ndiweni to close us out. And then co-host, I can see you've come off mute, so I don't know if there's something that you'd like to say.
Yes. From our colleague Sophia, she's saying that she needs to correct that it is not the Swedish CCC which did the distribution, but rather the C Diaspora and the Secretary for Diaspora Affairs in President Nelson Chamisa's office, Minister Clifford Lachwayo. So his team around the world is the one which actually helped distribute the petitions, not the C Swedish branch. That's the correction that she wanted to make.
Thank you so much for that, host. Really appreciate it. So if I can come to you, John, if you can give us some closing remarks, and then we'll go to Chief Ndiweni. Thank you.
Yeah, my apologies about constantly referring to the Swedish community, but yes, the CCC Diaspora Group, very, very good news. Really impressed with the level of lobbying you've been doing to the United Nations. It's really a big move in the right direction, a really big move. And can I thank everyone who's attended and listened today to this complex and emotive subject. It is, you all have the right to vote, but you don't have the capability of voting. You don't have the permission to vote by the current ruling party. And this is the root of nearly all the problems in Zimbabwe itself. It's a country that is incredibly wealthy due to mineral wealth, resources of just about every known element and compound known to man, yet the country is in a destitute situation. Most people are way below what would be considered the poverty level by any standard, and it's because of looting and corruption, and it's a sad indictment of the failure of the ZANU-PF government. And I don't use the word government and ZANU-PF in the same sentence because it's an oxymoron. They're not a government. They've never been a government. It's always been a cabal or a junta, a military junta. And it's sad to see the whole country ruined by a small minority at the top. And I mean a very small minority at the top. And so just thank you to be part of this regime, this group, to push this agenda. That's the agenda for rightness and truth and justice, and it needs to be done. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you. And to Chief Ndiweni, please.
Thank you very much, co-host. Thank you very much, host. Thank you, everybody, for taking your time out. I know time is precious to us. We've all got families and work and businesses, so we don't take your attendance lightly. So thank you very much indeed. In life, when one comes across something that's so complex, that's so difficult, that's so profound, that when you look at it from below or above or to the side or whichever way you look at it, it is all so complex. That is Zimbabwe today. For us, our job has been to try and find the beginning of that complexity, to find out that particular bullet that unravels all of those complex issues that the host has said, that John has said, that everybody has said. We're looking for that singular, one silver bullet that unravels all of that and brings it to normality. And it is the diaspora vote. It is a profound statement to make. It is the diaspora vote that can unlock the key, because the diaspora vote is actually preempting what chaos will arise in 2023. It is actually preempting that. It is putting things in place that can be utilized at that time to finally unravel the lack of governance in Zimbabwe and bring order to that government and to bring a legitimate government to Zimbabwe. We haven't yet seen another key that can do that. So for myself, I must applaud Triple C for dispatching those petitions all over the world and encourage them to continue doing so, because it is a preemptive step which will finally lead us to the United Nations. It will lead us to a number of resolutions being passed. It will lead us to a number of resolutions which SADC and the African Union will have to effect upon the government of Zimbabwe to bring it to order and to bring democracy back to that country. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Chief King. We really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much for having taken the time to come and speak to us this evening. But I think I've seen again another CCC finance team on. So Washington, I think you were going to speak. So if I can hand over to you.
Thank you, my sister, the host there, the co-hosts. All protocols observed. Thank you, Joan. I also want to say thank you to our chief. I just want to appreciate the work that you are doing. I'm starting with Change Radio. I think the idea of having a radio that will also be disseminating information to all the Zimbabweans and other nationalities out there is so important. We've only got stations which are literally run by the same regime that we are trying to to really work that's been working against the people of Zimbabwe. And this would be like an independent channel which will help disseminate information, and hopefully as time goes on, it's going to reach all the corners of Zimbabwe. Chief, I want to appreciate you and John, the work that you and your team are doing. I think that for many years, 42 years now, we can safely say, we have been run by a regime which does not have respect for human rights, which has resulted in nearly 5 million Zimbabweans all over the world running away with their lives, either trying to better themselves or running away from the regime, you know, because they've got a different of opinion to them. So I need to applaud your work and support your work 150%. I think that every person who's on this platform, the other people that are going to hear the news and the recordings, which will go for the next 30 days. I'm praying and hoping that everyone who's on this platform will continue to share and get everyone to hear what's being discussed on this important platform. So many things are happening. So many Zimbabweans are taking their parts in doing what they think is best for their country. And we need to support, and we will support this. I just wanted to compliment that and say that we're 100% behind this. We will support in whichever way we can to make sure this becomes a success, because we cannot win the war that has been waged against the citizens with ZANU-PF with just one party. We need many parties, many organizations to fight, and together united, we will win this war. And I think 2023 is going to be a taste that if we come together, we will be able to dislodge this regime and start rebuilding our country. So I really want to thank you for that, and everyone who's on this call, because it's your time coming here to listen, to contribute, and share the message out there. I know we've got distractors who comes on these platforms wanting to cascade information to say, oh, they're starting, they're doing this, they're doing this. Go and tell them this has started and it's not going to stop. Thank you again. Back to you, host.
Thank you so much for that and for those encouraging words. It's and just appreciating the chief and all the speakers that spoke. Co-host Diaspora, did you want to have any last words to say?
Just playing the song as the people will be parting if there are no more words.
All right, thank you so much. So again, another big thank you to all of our listeners across all of our platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and on here. To our Chief and King Ndiweni, thank you so much. To Mambo Shoshe, you've dropped off, I think, but thank you so much. To John Burke, you are our greatest ally, and we just want to appreciate you and to thank you for all the work that we do. And so delighted to hear that the Diaspora Affairs Office sent that petition along to 35 countries. I think that us in the UK need to do more as well to make sure that it reaches a wider audience. And thank you to Washington also for coming on and just encouraging everybody. And to the fabulous Diaspora Affairs Network host, thank you so much for always being here, supporting, and also, coming along with listeners. And to everybody, thank you so much. We shall see you again here soon, and we are going out with a song. Thank you.
Chamisa chapina makatemba masana. Chamisa chapina makatemba masana. Satiswa makajaira